Hey everyone, welcome back to another podcast. Today is episode 4 of the TIMO podcast. I'm Tim Bialik, founder of TIMO Athletics Group, where we help athletes develop on and off the field. At TIMO Athletics Group, we believe that yes, while improving your game on the field is very important, we believe that the off-field, the mental side of the game is just as important. Today's episode is an important one. It's a big one because if you've played sports long enough, you've dealt with this either yourself or you've seen someone deal with this directly, and that is injury and adversity. Injuries can take away your playing time. They can take away your confidence, and sometimes they can even take away your identity as an athlete. I don't wish injury upon anybody, but if you're playing in competitive sports, injury is part of the process. Either that's a short-term knock, that could be soreness, and unfortunately I say this, but it could be a very long-term injury. And adversity, that comes in many forms. You athletes can go through adversity by not making a team that you tried out for. Maybe making the team, but you're not in the starting lineup, or you are in the starting lineup and you lose that starting spot. Or it can even be, feeling like no matter how hard you work, things just aren't going your way. Every athlete deals with adversity. It's part of the athletic journey. It's part of the sport. It's part of this. It's part of sports. It's inevitable. And, like I said, if you're playing a competitive sport, you're competing, and injury is part of the sport. So this is a topic that I really, really wanted to talk about today because, I personally have dealt with injury and adversity throughout my playing career, and I definitely feel as if this can resonate with a lot of people going through an injury or going through some form of adversity. I think you're in the right place, and I think this podcast and this episode can really resonate with you. Like I've mentioned, I've been there before. If you're going through an injury right now, I've been in your situation. I know how it feels. I know how it feels to be on the sideline. I know how it feels to be isolated. You're not alone. I've been there. I've faced multiple injuries, long recoveries, and the fear of not being able to return to this game that I loved. But I also learned that this setback doesn't have to break you. That, sometimes adversity, and most of the time adversity, can actually make you stronger. So today we're going to break down how to get through these challenges, to stay mentally tough, and to come back from injury, or to come back from any form of adversity better than before. I've mentioned this in podcasts before, and I've dealt through an extended period of time of adversity through my injuries. Getting my first hip surgery before college, recovering from that. 1 month into college soccer, my freshman year, having to get another injury, setting myself out from the entire college season, getting a second hip surgery, getting surgery, recovering from that too, fully coming back, and then hearing the news that my left hip got re-injured, needing to get another surgery and fully recover from that. 3 hip surgeries before I was the age of 21, in the time when I wanted to be the most healthy person I can be, playing college soccer with my best friends and representing the school for the Wisconsin Badgers. It was such a tough time, but reflecting back on it, I'm grateful. having to sit in these doctor's visits, it's really hard to take the news and to hear it 3 times and to recover over and over again. It started to become very discouraging, and it was altogether, the toughest years of my life. I was out from the game for a total of 2 years. 2 years. My freshman and sophomore year of college, I was out from the game when this was like my most exciting time. Going from competing at a high level to being sidelines, it was hard. It was one of the hardest things I've gone through. The physical pain was tough, but the mental side, that was even harder. When you can't train, when you can't compete, you often start questioning yourself. You often start questioning reality. You often start questioning everything. Who am I? Who am I without my sport? What if I never get back to where I was? Will I ever be the same? These are the questions that I ask myself almost on a daily basis. For a while, I struggled. I felt frustrated, lost, even angry. But, over time, I realized something, and, I realized that I had a choice. This injury, this time of my life, it was, I didn't have control over it. It happened, and I can't reverse time. I had no control. That brings me back to to our first episode of controlling what you can control, and, letting, in my situation, letting God handle the rest. I had a choice. I can either, let this injury define me, or I can use this injury. I use that time. I can use that 2 years of being sidelined in isolation by myself as an opportunity to grow in ways I've never had before. So this brings me to wanting to talk about how we can reframe your mindset, how we could discuss the mental side of recovery. And this episodes is it's focused on adversity, but it's really focused on injuries, because I know that a lot of athletes go through injuries and struggle through injuries mentally. And, I feel like I resonate with a lot of people listening to this podcast right now, or who are, have been listening to my podcast, or maybe this is the first episode you're listening to. But, I just want to reiterate, if you're going through an injury, you're not alone. A lot of athletes go through injuries, and you're not alone. Injury recovery isn't just about that physical rehab. It's about the mental rehab too. And if you're an athlete going through this, here's what I think you need to know. The first thing I say is, acceptance doesn't mean giving up. I feel as too many athletes are trying to fight this reality. They ask, why me? They doubt themselves. They doubt reality. They doubt their life. Why me? Why am I getting injured at this time? I asked the same question. It was, when I received the news that I needed a second hip surgery right in the beginning of my freshman year, I questioned the same thing. I asked myself, why did this happen to me? Or I pretended like, the injury wasn't as bad. I said, no, I can recover from this. I can play through the pain. But I say this because the sooner you can accept this situation, the sooner you can accept your situation, I truly believe the sooner you can start attacking it with the right mindset. The second point is, your sport is what you do. It's not who you are. But this brings me back to, identifying you. Your athletic identity is not your entire identity. Your sport is what you do, but it's not who you are. One of the hardest lessons that I learned was that my identity wasn't tied to soccer. I thought it was. And when I self-reflected with myself on this, I struggled, because I made soccer my entire identity, and that was a big struggle for me because I didn't know who I was outside of soccer. I didn't know who Tim was outside of being a soccer player. And, when I was rehabbing from my injury, I was hit with this realization that, who is Tim? Who am I? And once I accepted that and realized that soccer is not my entire identity, it's just simply what I do, I felt free. I started focusing on other aspects of my life. I started focusing on leadership skills. I started focusing on my ability to mentor younger players, younger generations, and eventually, this led me to my passion for coaching. During my senior year and during my graduate fifth year, I was tasked with, being captain of the Wisconsin Badgers. And during that time, I realized that the most fulfilling thing was being a motivator, being an inspirer, coaching and leading my team before games, speaking to my teammates to hype them up before the game, to get them motivated, to pump them up, all these things, giving advice. These are things that I learned during my rehab process of my injuries, that this is what is fulfilling me. This is what Tim is all about. Inspiring, motivating, coaching. And this is ultimately why I started TIMO Athletics Group, because I knew that I was much more than a soccer player. I was an inspirer. I was a motivator. I felt that I have the experience to provide the younger generation with the advice they need to improve and develop on and off the field. So I want to repeat this. Soccer, or the sport that you're playing, maybe you don't play soccer. It could be any sport. Your sport is what you do, but it's not who you are. The third point I want to talk about is, again, control what you can control. Your injury, this adversity, it may not be in your control. You might not be able to change the fact that you're injured, but you can control how you approach your rehab. You can control your mindset. You can control your attitude. You can control your nutrition and your overall daily habits. Sit down with yourself and ask yourself, can I control this? And if so, what can I change in my lifestyle right now that will give me a better attitude and start shifting my mindset in a better direction? And the last thing is that I want to speak about on this is, find new ways to contribute. Just because you're sidelined doesn't mean you can't make an impact. Be a leader. Be a leader on the sidelines. Be a leader in study, in film sessions. Be a leader to support your teammates. Stay engaged with the game. When I was out from my injuries, I wanted to be at practice. I wanted to be sidelines. I wanted to be a value-added team member and pump up my team during training sessions to make sure that the session was the best level it can possibly be, to provide insights during film sessions so that we can learn as a team to improve. Be a motivator, be a learner, be a leader. Try to contribute in different ways. Don't just because you're sidelined, don't stay quiet out on the side. You're still part of the team. Find ways to contribute, to make your team better, to make your teammates better, to give some teammates sometimes harsh reality checks. It's all about the team. That's why we play team sports. So find new ways to contribute, to support your teammates, to stay engaged in the game. I always like to connect this to, mentions of of the greats in sports. And, I want to talk about some athletes who also went through major setbacks and adversities, who ultimately came back stronger because they mastered the mental side of the game. I always bring up Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant tore his Achilles, but Kobe Bryant refused to let that injury define him. Instead, he made, when he tore his Achilles, he made both free throws before walking off the court. He stayed in the game, made both free throws, and then walked off the court, and then treated rehab like competing at championship. His mindset, what was his mindset? This journey is a reward. It's not a setback, it's a reward. And that's why I always say that, yes, it's tough to accept this, but ultimately, my injuries, they're the best thing that happened to me in my life. Alex Morgan, a series of injuries sidelined her for nearly a whole year. But she used this time to focus on her mental game, her leadership, her nutrition. She came back and eventually led the U.S. national team to another World Cup win. Adrian Peterson tore his ACL and his MCL. This is such a devastating injury for running backs. But, instead of letting it end his career, he attacked this rehab. He attacked this injury with an unmatched intensity and returned the very next season to win NFL MVP. Such a great story. It just goes to show that anything's possible if you believe it. If you can see it and you believe, Conor McGregor says this, and I don't know if I'm quoting the perfect quote, but he said it in a press conference. If you can see it and you believe it in your heart, anything's possible. Injuries aren't the only form of adversity that athletes face. Maybe you got cut from a team. Maybe you lost your starting spot, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe you're dealing with self-doubt or struggling to find motivation. The same mindset applies. Resilience, adaptation, and growth. When you face setbacks, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this time to improve in other ways? Who can I reach out to support me? Adversity isn't a stop sign, you guys. It's a test. It's a test. And if you're pushing through it, and if you push through it, you'll come out stronger on the other side. I came out stronger on the other side. So what I want you to do is apply this in your life. And here's my challenge to you. Here's my challenge on episode 4. Write down one thing you can't control right now. Write down one thing you cannot control right now. And I want you to accept it. Accept this reality. Stop wasting your energy on it. You can't control it. It's out of your control. It's done. What are you going to do? You can't. The only thing you can do right now is accept this reality. And stop wasting your energy on it and start putting more energy in other things, other areas. Now, the second thing I want you to do is write down 3 things that you can control and attack those every single day. Take energy out of what you can't control and reinvest that energy in things that you can control. And the third thing is find one way to grow outside of your sport. Maybe that's reading a book. Maybe that's starting journaling. Maybe that's working on your leadership skills. Build yourself in ways that go beyond just playing your sport. Find an identity outside of your sport. I'm telling you, it'll help you in the long run. And you'll come out less lost. If you're ever going through a setback or a form of isolation, if you find an identity outside of your sport and you accept the fact that your sport is what you do, it's not who you are, you can embrace solitude much better. You guys, I just want to say this episode was a very important episode. It was one that touched me a lot because I went through a very long injury process, and I know that injuries occur to so many athletes playing sports right now, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening. That is today's episode, and if it resonated with you, and maybe if you've listened to previous podcasts and you enjoy listening to the content in these podcasts, I highly encourage you to subscribe to this. I love making these podcasts. I love motivating. I love inspiring. And, whoever listens to this, I hope I inspired you with today's or in other episodes in the past. But I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss future episodes. And, if you're an athlete looking for support, whether that's on the field, I highly recommend our one-on-one training sessions. I also highly recommend our online mentorship program and our in-person training program. These 3 programs and services on our website, TIMO Athletics Group, we want to help you improve your game on and off the field. And if you want to improve or rebuild your confidence, your mental toughness, or just your overall purpose beyond sports, I highly encourage you to check out TIMOathleticsgroup.com and look at our services and those services as well. If you're an athlete going through, and if you're an athlete in high school, particular sophomore, junior year of high school, and you want to play soccer at the next level, please check out our college recruiting mentorship program. This is a program where I help you navigate the college recruiting process. I give you tips and tricks and resources to help you gain your exposure, improve your exposure to college coaches. I help you navigate the college recruiting process so that you could play college soccer and play at the next level. Please check out TIMO Athletics Group. Our services are online, or you can also check out our Instagram at TIMO Athletics Group. We're here to help. Remember, setbacks are temporary, but your response is what defines you. Keep pushing forward, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.